On the 13th of July 2024, a man opened fire at a Donald Trump campaign rally in Pennsylvania. The former president was wounded and a spectator was killed, and in a matter of seconds the Secret Service was thrust into the global spotlight. This just wasn't an attack on a political figure, it was a direct challenge to one of the most heavily protected individuals on Earth. And it raised one big question: how did this happen? In this video we're breaking down the attempted assassination of Donald Trump. We'll look at exactly what went wrong, what the investigations have uncovered, and how political security is being rethought in the aftermath. We'll also put it into context because whilst this might feel like a modern shock, it's part of a pattern that stretches all the way back to Abraham Lincoln. In this series, we explore the real-world side of security, the failures that change the rules, the people behind the protection, and the lessons every organisation should be paying attention to. Let's get into it. On the afternoon of the 13th of July 2024, presidential candidate Donald Trump was speaking at a campaign rally in Butler, Pennsylvania. It was an outdoor event drawing thousands of supporters ahead of the Republican National Convention. At approximately 6:11 p.m, gunfire suddenly erupted. A single shooter, Thomas Matthew Crooks, a 20-year-old with no prior criminal record, opened fire from a nearby rooftop overlooking the rally site. Armed with a semi-automatic rifle and a clear line of sight, he fired multiple rounds in quick succession. One bullet grazed Trump's right ear, causing visible bleeding, but not a life-threatening injury. Two other people were hit. One of them, Corey Comparator, a father and a firefighter, was killed shielding his family. Within seconds, Secret Service agents surrounded Trump, shielding and evacuating him from the stage. A counter-sniper team on site located, engaged and killed the shooter. The event, streamed live on social media and news platforms, sent shockwaves across the world. In the space of a few seconds, a former US president had survived an assassination attempt, but not without loss of life. And while the immediate threat was neutralised, the aftermath raised far more questions than answers. The attack wasn't just shocking because of what happened, it was shocking because of what didn't happen beforehand. First and foremost, there was a failure in site security. The shooter positioned himself on the roof of a building approximately 130 metres from the rally stage, inside the designated security perimeter. That rooftop wasn't properly secured, despite offering a clear line of sight to the event. In basic terms, that's a major oversight. Second, there was a gap in surveillance and sniper overwatch. Whilst there were counter-snipers on duty, none had eyes on that specific rooftop. That gave the attacker the time and positioning he needed to open fire without being detected, until it was already too late. Third, coordination between agencies appeared disjointed. The Secret Service, local law enforcement, and event security reportedly had conflicting responsibilities. According to early analysis, intelligence didn't flow effectively between teams, and command and control was not clearly unified on site. Fourth, the profile of the event should have triggered stricter controls. This wasn't just any rally. Trump was not only a former president at the time, but also a presidential candidate during a highly polarised election. The crowd was large, outdoors, and exposed. That combination should have led to a more aggressive security posture, including tighter rooftop sweeps and expanded buffer zones. In the days following the attack, Secret Service Director Kimberly Cheatle resigned, facing intense criticism from both political leaders and the public. A full investigation into the operation was launched and questions were raised about how the most elite protective service in the world could allow such a breach. The truth is, no system is perfect, but in high-risk environments, even a single missed detail can cost lives. And in this case, it did. The attempt on Donald Trump's life wasn't just a modern security failure. It was the latest chapter in a long, grim history of violence against US presidents. Abraham Lincoln was the first. In 1865, he was shot by John Wilkes Booth in a theatre. At the time, there was no formal presidential protection in place. His death shocked the nation and ultimately paved the way for the creation of the Secret Service. James Garfield, in 1881, was shot by a man angry about not being given a government job. He died weeks later from infection. And William McKinley in 1901 was assassinated while shaking hands with the public. That's when the idea of a permanent presidential protection finally took hold. But the most infamous case came in 1963, when President John F. Kennedy was assassinated in Dallas, Texas. He was shot by Lee Harvey Oswald, at least officially. To this day, many Americans believe there was more to it. Multiple shooters, a cover-up, even involvement from intelligence agencies. It's one of the most enduring conspiracy theories in US history. The result? After JFK, presidential security was completely rethought. Motorcade routes became highly secretive. Armoured vehicles became standard. Aerial surveillance and sniper teams became routine. In 1981, Ronald Reagan survived an assassination attempt outside a Washington hotel. That incident transformed the emergency medical protocols used by protective teams. He nearly died, and the speed of the response is what saved him. Even Gerald Ford faced 2 separate assassination attempts. In 1975, both fortunately failed, but both also exposed gaps in crowd control and close protection. All of this has shaped the way political figures are protected today. And yet, with all the tech, planning and procedures available in 2024, a shooter still managed to get into a position, take aim and open fire on what was a former president. The history is there, the warnings are there, but the threat never really disappears. Just 2 months after the attempt in Pennsylvania, another plot emerged, this time in Florida. On the 15th of September 2024, a man named Ryan Wesley Routh was arrested near Trump International Golf Club in West Palm Beach. He was heavily armed, wearing body armour and carrying a detailed plan. His target? Donald Trump. Routh had scouted the area, carried weapons and had written notes outlining his intentions. Law enforcement intervened before anything could happen. But what's most important here is that this wasn't an isolated threat. In the space of just 2 months, there were 2 separate attempts to assassinate the same former president, and both came at a time of intense political division, media frenzy, and escalating rhetoric across the US. Routh was charged with attempted assassination of a former president, among other federal offences. His arrest didn't just trigger legal proceedings, it triggered another wave of pressure on security services to re-evaluate risk, particularly for political figures who attract passionate support and equally passionate opposition. What it showed, loud and clear, is that after Pennsylvania, the threat didn't just disappear. If anything, it escalated. After 2 serious threats in the space of 2 months, the US Secret Service was forced to act quickly and visibly. The most immediate change was leadership. Just days after the July attack, Secret Service Director Kimberly Cheatle resigned under pressure. Critics, including former agents and political figures from both parties, accused the agency of serious failures in planning and site control. She was subsequently replaced by Ronald L. Rowe Jr., a former senior law enforcement official with experience in protective operations and crowd security. His appointment signalled a shift in approach, less about image, more about readiness. Operational reforms followed. Advanced site control was tightened. All elevated positions near venues are now mapped, cleared and locked down before an event, especially for outdoor rallies, which are inherently harder to secure. Sniper team deployment protocols were reviewed. Instead of covering only the front or central angle of a site, teams are now required to map 360-degree fields of fire and run overlapping coverage. More tech is also being deployed. This includes aerial drones for overwatch, AI-assisted surveillance tools for detecting unusual crowd behaviour, and improved facial recognition systems at checkpoints. Command and coordination have also been reinforced. The Secret Service is now working more closely with local law enforcement to ensure unified response structures, one command, one protocol, and one chain of accountability. Candidate-specific threat assessments have also been enhanced. With Trump at the time being both a former president and a polarising political figure, the risk level remained high. Protection is about being tailored not just to the office, but to the individual. But perhaps the biggest shift is kind of philosophical. The idea that any public figure, regardless of status, is untouchable is kind of gone. Security is no longer about appearance, it's about assessing intent, predicting behaviour and staying 2 steps ahead of an attacker who may already be watching. Within hours of the assassination attempt, the conspiracy theories started. Some claim it was staged, others suggest Trump wasn't even really injured. Some went even further, accusing the Secret Service, political opponents or intelligence agencies of being involved. The fact that the shooter was killed instantly and that little was known about him in the immediate aftermath fueled speculation online. Hashtags trended, YouTube channels ran wild, and once again the line between truth and theory became dangerously blurred. This obviously isn't new. As I mentioned earlier, when John F. K was assassinated in 1963, the official story was that Lee Harvey Oswald had acted alone. Yet for decades people have questioned whether that version is true, believing in second shooters, CIA involvement, or even internal political motives. The JFK case became the blueprint for political conspiracy culture. What's different now is probably the speed. In 2024, social media spreads speculation faster than official statements ever have managed before. That matters because when public trust erodes, security operations become much harder. Misinformation doesn't just distract from real threats, it can inflame tensions and even inspire copycats. In the case of Donald Trump, the FBI confirmed the shooter acted alone. There was no broader network, no deeper conspiracy, But in an age of disinformation, the truth competes with hundreds of louder, less credible voices. As security professionals, it's a reminder: clear communication, public trust and transparency aren't just PR, they're part of the protective strategy. The attempted assassination of Donald Trump wasn't just a wake-up call, it was a test of everything the US security system is supposed to prevent. A shooter got into a position, he had a clear line of sight, he fired and he hit one of the most heavily protected individuals on the planet. That shouldn't have been possible. The failures were clear: unsecured rooftops, poor sniper coverage, unclear coordination, and the consequences were ultimately real. One person died, others were injured, and the public confidence in the Secret Service took a major hit. But what followed mattered too. Leadership changed, protocols were overhauled, and the response from the security community, whilst late, was serious. Because the reality is, no amount of experience, technology or tradition makes anyone bulletproof. Political violence isn't just a relic of the past, it's a current and ongoing threat. From Abraham Lincoln to JFK, Reagan to Trump, the risk hasn't disappeared, it's simply evolved. If there's one takeaway, it's this: security can't stand still. Not when the threats are adapting, not when public events are high risk, and when the cost of complacency is a life. Thanks for watching the video today. If you've got anything to say on this case or others, leave a comment below. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel and smash that bell icon to be notified when more videos appear, and we'll see you again soon.